New patch, new build. Snapping's nerfed, which means that we're going to have to take a different approach to things. The frost spec is pretty much dead now, which means that we're going to have to use this new spec that I came up with. I make sure that I maximized everything for efficiency and actual usefulness. Keep in mind that this is designed for PvP, and even though some things might not look correct on paper, we're making sure that we use maximum utility and that we make sure that it's actually possible to get all of these things off in PvP. For example, asking a player to be able to use a Kindle into the TT combo of that is very difficult in PvP simply due to the amount of stuns available. So we're making sure that it seems very logical and reasonable to use these combos and these new things that I'm going to show you. So going ahead and getting right into it, we're going to take a look at the build. This build utilizes Flame Tactic and Mixed Tactic for its damage. So basically, starting off with Flame, everything into the conversions, pretty standard across the board. Magic shot for the max mana recovery. Full damage into the the YY section of things. Moving over, under Fire Eruption, we're going to go ahead and improve the damage for the Flame Shot and Fiery Meteor versions. Moving over to Mixed Tactic, full damage points into the RR versions of Static Charge. If you have an extra amount of points available, you go ahead and throw them into that conversion effect for Mixed Tactic. Moving over to the non-chain skills. Elemental Armor with the Enhancement 3 for the stun effect when you're hit by a melee target. Blink for the Enhancement 1 for the crowd control removal. Disenchant 3 for the damage, quite obvious, and the Counterspell Enhancement 2 so that you can beat the crap out of mages. This is my current ability tree. This ability tree changes almost every few days for me simply because when I get new points, I like to min-max, so I make sure that I get the correct ability points available that are the most useful at that point. So how does this build function? We don't have mana shield anymore. We don't have mana recovery effects, so what do we do now? How do we survive? Well, the survivability portion is a little difficult to explain. Our survivability portion is going to come from our ability to hopefully come across a melee target, and we're going to have to memorize kind of timings against those targets. We're going to be using Blink in order to escape certain combos from enemies. We're going to be using the Elemental Armor in order to make sure that in the event that we do get hit, we kind of have a safety net there. And we're going to be focusing on making sure that we blow up our targets before they have a chance to blow us up, right? Because we're very squishy as it is. So, how does it function? Well, you start a Mixed Tactic. You apply Static Charge. Now, the reason why we start in Mixed Tactic is simply because of Static Charge. Because it does reduce movement speed, and if a class is willing, if a melee opponent is unwilling to use a movement speed ability on you immediately, or leap, or whatever it might be, they're simply going to die. So they're going to be forced to use this, which kind of fits into our utility role there a little bit. After Static Charge, we go ahead and use the fire abilities there, and we swap stance immediately afterward to Flame Tactic. At this point, we're going to want to be using the Fiery Eruption, Flame Shot, and Fiery Meteor. Keep in mind that due to the changes of the combo system, we're now going to be wanting to combo everything if we possibly can, which means before we swap stances, we're going to want to be having a 3-chain combo already set up. Doesn't matter what it is, just you want to have one set up. So after you use the Fire Eruption, Flame Shot, and Fiery Meteor section, due to the effect of Mixed Tactic when you convert, we can now cast Fire Eruption a second time, instantly. So we do that chain, and then we repeat the same chain. So why do we do this in particular? The reason why we do this is because the last Fiery Meteor in this chain has a stun effect applied for 2 seconds. This means, in theory, if you're quick enough, you can cast this chain to stun, and then immediately stun right afterward, before the opponent has a real chance to kind of get out of that. Keep in mind that as soon as someone is stunned, they're going to want to be trying to get out of it, and if they spec into ways to get out of stun effects, then they'll simply be hit by another one immediately after. So it won't be very good for them until they get to the point to where they know that they're going to need to expect a second Fire Meteor, which won't be at least for a few months, simply because people aren't very quick at learning in these types of games. after the second combo from the fire eruption tree, you're going to move over to the magic shot and then the YY section, which would be the incinerate fire meteor. After this is complete, you should have an extra few seconds to gauge yourself. Look to see if you have any strong cooldowns that are necessary. For example, if you're playing against a melee target, you might want to see if you can cast elemental armor if you don't already have it. If disenchant's up, you're going to want to disenchant. And if it's a mage, and your counterspell came up in some version of the cycle, then you're going to want to go ahead and use that, simply because whoever casts counterspell works against mage. First in mage versus mage usually wins. Whoever presses this button first wins. It's unfortunate the way that turns out, but it's an extremely powerful spell, and if it does land, then you pretty much just instantly win the game, right? So, if none of those are available, you continue with a spam of the 1RR, basically. Just the simple spam. Make sure that you have a stack of 3 in your combo chain before you swap back to mixed tactic. When you swap to mixed tactic, you repeat our first step. You repeat the static charge RR combo here, and then things change again. You're going to want to ask yourself again, do you have anything that might be useful now in your non-chain skill section? Is there an enemy that's starting to get too close to you? Has it been too close to you for a while now? At that point, you can use a few blinks if you need to. Or whatever you need to use to make sure that you're in a good place. Because using these abilities here is better than using our next best thing, which would be the Ice Flame, Fireball, and Fire Explosion. Now, the event that you can't use them, you can use the Ice Flame, Fireball, Fire Explosion anyway, and you'll have an extra few seconds from there. At which point, you can continue the Ice Flame into any of these other abilities here. Make sure that you finish the full 3 chain before you swap back to Flame Tactic, of course. So that's the entire combo, and it can be repeated infinitely in the way that I just explained. There's a few things that you guys need to keep in mind. When you do swap from Mixed Tactic to Flame, you understand that you can use your third ability twice if you use it correctly. So you can use it and immediately use it after. So you use Fire Eruption, do the whole chain, and you can immediately use the same chain over again. So keep that in mind. You do get some mana back. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough to be able to help you kill a few targets before you need to get mana again. When you do swap from Flame Tactic to Mixed, you understand that your critical hit rate is going to be 40%, and you're going to apply Fiery Curse, which means if you critically hit multiple times with Flame skills, you're going to leave a very nasty, long-lasting dot on your enemy that could potentially still crit, which is extremely powerful. The Fiery Curse is extremely powerful when stacked. You understand that your main point is to stack as many combo chains as possible, because that's your main source of damage now. It's through the combo system. You understand in the event that you're left kind of doing whatever and are resorting to using simple trees that don't do a whole lot of damage, that you can go ahead and use Counterspell, Disenchant, Elemental Armor, and Blink to your advantage whenever necessary, because they're worth more. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys kind of what the combo actually looks like. Repeated over and over again. I'm probably going to do it 2 or 3 times so you can see the full rotation of it and you can understand kind of what's going on. So I'm going to be doing exactly what I told you guys. If you mess up, just keep practicing. If you need to find a target dummy, you can find them here on this side of the map. It's all the way up here by the Eternal Shade, and it's in the Forest of Life section of this area. So let's get it right into it. So we're going to start off in mixed stance as usual. Swap stances. Right? You swap stances there, okay? So we make sure that some people have been having problems with swapping stances. This is what you need to do when you swap stances, okay? If you're casting, so let's use this as an example, right? Let's use just this Flame Burst. So if we're swapping stances here, you want to see that it says finished first before you swap. Right? You see finished, then you swap, and finished goes away. That's what you want to see. If you do it too quickly or too slowly where this bar goes, you cancel your combo, so you're unable to combo. So I'm going to go ahead and do everything for you guys because I was talking about that real quick. So going back into it. So that was just pretty much an example chain of what it looks like when you do it properly. Of course, again, remember that you have these options available to use, and you can swap them out for some of the smaller chains. Just remember that when you are going to swap stances, which should be every 10 seconds, you should keep in mind that you need to have a combo chain built up. Some of you may be wondering, so what do I do in the event that I don't have mana? When you don't have mana, you're stuck in a kind of a weird spot. You should have over half mana when you kill someone. That's simply the way that it's going to turn out. You do a lot of damage if you complete your chains, and chains are what cost most of your mana. So, I mean, if you have to, at the end of the day, you can just spam one over and over and over again and use your blinks if you need to. Just remember that it does basically no damage. You're just going to be tickling them. So, like if a target's going to die and you have no problem, you can kind of just spam Magic Shot a few times into them before they die so you can regen some of that mana, and you're going to have to stay out of combat for the most part. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's the build. It's very good. Make sure that you practice a little bit. Again, the target W's are here in this area. If you have any questions, please let me know. There are things that do more damage than this build. The problem is that it's very difficult and very unconventional to be used in a PvP environment where everything has like a bajillion stuns. So just keep that in mind. Alright guys, thanks.